Zoom says we're live. Let's see if Facebook says we're live yet.
Let's see.
Looks like we are.
All righty. Let's see. I'm just trying to get my screen here. All righty. There we are. Hello there, Sarah. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me on today.
Oh my gosh, thank you for agreeing to come on. And thank you, especially since it's 6 p.m. where I am and it's still like early afternoon, I think, where you are.
Yep, it's 3 here. I'm on the West Coast.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining me today. Just want to first set the intention that today's live event is really about Sarah and I coming together to talk about something that we both are so really passionate about, and that is health and wellness in the broad sense of health and wellness, and really about just what I believe in is being fit and functional for life. So, like lifestyle medicine and taking all the tools that we possibly can gather and create lives that we can be happy about, we can be proud of, and that we can really just live that life we really dream of from a health and wellness perspective. Sarah and I met on LinkedIn just a couple of months ago during this global pandemic, and we got to talking about health and wellness. And we've just connected so well, I think, over the past couple of months about this. I'm fascinated with Sarah's story. So I'm really excited to have her on today to talk about gut health and mental health and making the connection between food, mood, and mental health. So just a little bit about me and a little bit about Sarah, just in case you're new to SIBA Health and new to meeting Sarah and learning about Sarah's work. I am Angel Shannon. I am an adult and geriatric nurse practitioner. I specialize in integrative medicine for adults and seniors. I focus on lifestyle medicine, and my coaching program, Fit and Functional for Life, is all about everything that I just talked about, which is getting fit and functional, not just for an event, not just for one time in your journey, but for life over the long haul, so across the lifespan. I maintain a clinical practice in Pikesville, Maryland, and I also do lots of teaching and talking and coaching and whatnot all over the country and hopefully all over the world soon. So I want to introduce my guest today. Her name is Sarah Kilgore. I'm going to share Sarah's bio with you because I think it's just absolutely fascinating. Sarah has worked as a career CPA for more than 17 years, but she definitely does a whole lot more than wrangling numbers. She really delights in helping moms learn to be present and perform at their best by teaching these high performers how to achieve the optimal mental edge through a combination of life coaching, community support, and holistic nutrition and supplementation for gut-brain axis health. Sarah's going to do a deep dive into this, so you guys just stay tuned. She's also embraces her passion of cultivating savvy businesswomen by teaching them the basic essentials of entrepreneurial accounting and personal finance. Sarah considers herself a faith-based entrepreneur and coach and loves helping others grow spiritually. Ooh, so exciting.
It's a lot in the bio, isn't it? That's a lot of different hats.
A lot of different hats. But you know what? I really believe that health is the first wealth. I really do. And because you're a person who knows numbers and knows personal finance, I'm sure you can speak to how your health directly impacts your wealth and your finances.
Absolutely. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely feel like there's a correlation between how you're feeling physically and mentally and what your habits are with money.
Mm-hmm.
Money can be used as a tool. People use it as a self-medication tool. They either have lots of control over it or they spend wildly and don't have control over it, or they're really tight about planning and providing for their future with money, or they're just like, it's a free for all. And I think a lot of that reflects what's going on in their head, in their spirit, in their health, like just everything. So
Mm-hmm.
that they sound like very different things, but really they're very cohesive and they're very integrated with each other. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Sarah, I read your bio, but for people who are tuning in, can you tell us a little bit about you, your background? Like, how did you come into working as a choosing accounting as a career? And, tell us a little bit about yourself.
yeah, so I had absolutely no plans to become an accountant when I graduated from high school and went to college. In fact, I was an aviation major to start
Oh,
with.
wow. Okay.
I actually have my private pilot certificate. I got that while I was in high school, and I wanted to be a commercial airline pilot. And so,
Wow, that is fascinating.
yeah, so I started college as an aviation major, and I got into working on my instrument rating, and I suffered terribly from motion sickness.
Hmm.
Good,
Mm-hmm.
and just working from your instrument panel, and it was just miserable for me.
Hmm.
I decided that that probably wasn't the best career for me.
Right.
Know if I could get through all the flight training, and just it was just miserable. So one of my other the reasons that one of the reasons I chose the college that I did was because they also had an equestrian program.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been a lifelong equestrian. I grew up riding and showing horses. And so I actually had a horse with me at school that I boarded off site. And when the aviation thing showed showed me it wasn't what my future was supposed to be, I
Mm-hmm.
majored to equestrian studies and wanted to be a horse trainer.
Wow. Okay.
So, so I switched over to equestrian studies, and I actually decided to do an emphasis in equine business, so business
Okay.
management of an equine endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
In that, I started taking some accounting classes, and it just clicked for me. It was just like my brain
Nice.
meant to do numbers. And
Nice.
so my advisor and my parents were both encouraging to me that maybe I should take up an accounting major also. So,
Mm-hmm.
so I graduated from college with two majors, one in accounting and one in equestrian studies. And that's kind of what's brought me where I am today.
Yeah.
My horse hobby that my CPA profession supports financially.
It's so funny how, you hear this so much. And I know in your line of work, you start out in one path in life and you just never know how, it's our lives are just such a rich tapestry, things that are just simple hobbies or, sideline interests, especially when we're young, that really kind of just sets the tone, in ways that you can never really imagine as you get older. And I
Yeah.
think that's so important to have something that you're deeply, deeply passionate about, because we all have to make a living. But then it's also like, what else am I passionate about that I would do whether I was paid or not? Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess my whole life I've really been driven by what I feel passionate about. I
Mhm.
thought my career, I loved to fly. So I
Mhm.
wanted to do something I loved for a job. And then when that didn't work out, I loved my horses. So I wanted
Mhm.
to do that for a job.
Mhm.
And I actually did work as a horse trainer for a few years right after college. And I was tired of being broke.
Yeah, I hear you.
So it was a good thing I had the other career to fall
Mhm.
on and started
Mhm.
doing that. So
Mhm. Mhm.
it's just, and then full circle, I worked strictly in accounting for many, many years.
Mhm.
And just recently, in the last couple of years, I've sort of started transitioning into some other areas that are areas of passion and purpose for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Other women out of feeling stuck into a more purposeful place in life, feeling in alignment with what their calling is, and
Mhm.
you know, changing their lifestyle from one that's making them feel gross and yuck,
Mhm. Mhm.
one that
Mhm.
makes them feel energetic and good in their mind and their body
Yeah.
and in their
Yeah.
spirit. So I guess
Mhm.
I'm integrating the passion back into my career now.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I want to jump in on that because you and I both work with professionals, and I work with people of all different backgrounds. And, I find that with professionals, it's always this talk about productivity, right? So it's like, how productive am I in my work? Am I achieving my numbers, sales, and all kinds of things, and especially entrepreneurs, right? Because, or people in self-employed and whatnot, because you've got to earn a certain amount of income. It all comes down to just you, right? So there's always this talk about how to be more productive. And I think before COVID, it was all about the hustle and grind, right? So it was
Mhm.
staying up all night, crunching the numbers. And I'm sure you see this as an accountant, like always looking at that spreadsheet. How much am I making? How much am I making? And can you speak to the degree to which you've interacted with professionals who are doing everything that they need to do? Like, it looks all good on paper, right? On their, you look at their planner, you look at their spreadsheet, but somewhere behind there, they're really suffering. Like, they're either stressed out, or they're so tired, or they're what I call tired and wired,
Mhm.
fried, died, laid to the side, whatever you want to call it. Can you speak
That
to,
was me. That
yeah,
was my story. Yeah.
yeah. Can you
Yeah.
can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it in my peers, in my coworkers, in clients. It's just, especially I think people who tend to be type A perfectionistic personalities, really
Mhm,
driven for achievement and productivity. We have a hard time turning it off,
mhm.
and we have a hard time sitting still, and we have a hard time embracing relaxation and
Yes.
rejuvenation and giving ourselves downtime to actually refuel,
Mhm,
be able to be the best version of ourselves when we are on.
mhm,
So
mhm,
that's been a struggle for me my whole life. I mean,
mhm,
I've gone in and out of burnout over and over and over. I mean, I've been on lots of like psychiatric medications for depression and anxiety, just trying to calm things down
mhm,
and
mhm.
cope and numb myself out enough to get through the day because I gotta keep going, gotta keep going.
Exactly. Got to make those numbers work. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I've had a good 2 decades of living that and seeing
Mhm,
in my, like I said, my coworkers and my peers too,
mhm,
and clients as well.
mhm.
It's and I think that's, having lived that is what makes me want to show people there's another way to do it. You can still earn
Exactly.
and you
Mhm,
can still um, reach your goals, but you can have a little more balance. I don't think true balance really exists. It's always,
mhm,
things are always going to fight with each other for priority, but
mhm.
you can change what that looks like for you.
Oh my gosh, you've said so much. Like, I just want to unpack this. It's so juicy, right? So, so in my clinical practice, I offer something called mindful medication management, which is rooted in the idea that only through mindfulness, can we
Mhm.
develop self-awareness
Mhm.
and be in tune with these emotions and with these thoughts and these ideas about productivity and value and what value we bring and service and all the kinds of things that you were talking about. I have a large number of clients who come to me for medication management or to explore more holistic approaches to dealing with anxiety and depression.
Mhm.
And what you just said is, I mean, you literally have laid out exactly the kind of work that I do, which is, there's got to be a better way. Now, I am not anti medication. Like, I
Mhm.
believe that sometimes a little chemical goes a long way, and
Yeah.
sometimes people really need that. But I think that we're now in a place of our evolution as a society where we're much more open talking about mental health.
Yeah.
People are admitting and coming out and saying, hey, yeah, I'm in therapy, and we're normalizing that. We're
Yeah.
normalizing being on medication. And what I'm really happy about is that we're normalizing the natural approach that we can do two things at one time. Two things
Mhm.
can coexist. We can be on medication, but also be doing those lifestyle things that can help mitigate some of those symptoms of anxiety and depression and insomnia and perseveration and just that wild thought that just goes and goes and goes. So
Yeah.
can you share a little bit about, when you mentioned, if you're willing to, talk a little bit about, your journey with mental health, and when you said that, there's got to be a better way, what did that, how did you come to that understanding? What was going on that made you sort of that light bulb go off, especially as a professional, because it's so much easier just to take the easier route. If someone gives you a pill and says it's going to solve
Yeah.
everything, that is definitely the easier route. So what
And
led you to go down the non traditional route, if we can put it that way?
yeah, so I mean, like I said, I had about a 20-year mental health journey before I actually realized that there were holistic solutions.
Mm-hmm.
That was never presented to me in,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a lot of it's because the science has come out in the last decade or so, really,
Mm-hmm.
that and it's become more and more um, mainstream and talked about. And traditional medical providers, I don't think a lot of the ones that I've seen were taught that when they went
Mm-hmm.
to school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
don't If you don't attend the specific continuing education for
Mm-hmm.
the specific topics, you're never going to learn about it, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of providers just are kind of oblivious to it still,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not as clinically studied, tried and true,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't feel like they can recommend anything that isn't very factual and on paper, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I also think that big pharma controls a lot in our world that
Oh
we don't
yeah.
know.
Oh
And
yeah.
so there's just really a push and a pressure to just that, and productivity. When you go see your provider, I mean, someone like you is such a gift because I know when I go see my family practice provider, he's like in and out as quickly as he possibly can. I don't think he reads my chart before he comes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of those situations where they're just supposed to see so many people every day to
Yeah.
hit the productivity quotient and get their productivity bonus, which I know a little bit about because I was a hospital controller for 4 years. And it was my job to calculate those bonuses on a quarterly
Yeah.
basis. So
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's a lot of pressure there on providers too. So they are looking for quick solutions for people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the less a person has to come back in and keep dealing with an issue too, the better. And medications are quick.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just never exposed to the fact that there might be other ways to manage my mental health other than just popping pills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And what really got me, what the turning point for me was actually having my daughter. I have one daughter, she's 2. I was a month shy of 40, so I waited really late in life to have children.
Mm-hmm.
And I had just come off of about 3 years of medical hell. I'm just going to put it that way. I'd had this long 20-year ordeal with mental health, just like with depression and anxiety. But in 2016, I had an accident and I had a mild traumatic brain injury.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And my husband and I ran a horse boarding facility at that time as a side job,
Right.
of our full-time jobs. And I was up on top of the barn and I actually just fell off. I fell off a 20-foot high roof onto gravel.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so
Oh.
I was unconscious. I had my first ambulance ride, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I had a really hard recovery. Like they say most concussions are pretty much healed within the first 3 months, but my symptoms lasted like 2.5 years
Oh my gosh.
until I had until actually I found this holistic solution, holistic solutions that I
Mm-hmm.
decided to change the way I was eating, change my diet, start supplementing. I found some science that is relatively new that just was really intriguing to me. And
Mm-hmm.
so my daughter was the turning point for me though, because I didn't have a problem filling my body with medications, but
Mm-hmm.
I had a real problem filling hers with them.
Oh, wow. What an important point.
Yeah, so I actually was on antidepressants throughout my pregnancy with her just because my provider was encouraging that it was better to stay on them and know that you're going to be stable than to go off and have something really bad happen. So, so I was on antidepressants throughout my pregnancy, which was upsetting to me because I knew she didn't need them and I didn't know exactly what I might be doing to her. And I chose to breastfeed and breastfed for a long time. And I knew I was still giving her those chemicals.
Okay.
And so that was really when someone presented to me or started educating me on holistic solutions, I was like, yes, sign me up. Try this because I still had terrible symptoms from my concussion.
Yeah.
I still had chronic tension headaches. I literally had a headache I had one lapse in time where I didn't have headaches during my pregnancy. I think the hormones, the relaxant, all that going on, like helped calm things down for me for a little while during my but other than that, for literally 2.5 years, I had a nonstop headache.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
so I was still
at the same time as having a newborn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had, a lot of chronic physical pain. I had ADHD from the head injury.
I believe it.
Clearly. I had I was to the point where I wanted to go on medication to help manage that because it was affecting my ability to do my job in a major and my doctor was like, nope, you can't. You're pregnant. You have, and then you're breastfeeding. Like you can't be on those medications. So it actually was a blessing that I feel like that happened because otherwise I would have been on another medication.
Exactly. And that polypharmacy is real. That's a clinical term for when you're just having, one medication and another and another and another. And I'll be absolutely honest, it happens all the time where you start one medication and you have a side effect. So the person is given another medication to mitigate the side effect of the first one. Now the second one is giving a different side effect. So now you've got another. And before you know it, I mean, I do something in my practice called the brown bag check. And at every single appointment, we go through the medications because I got to see what's happening here. I got to make sure there aren't interactions. And, it's just not even cost effective either to be having all of these different medications and whatnot. And you said something really important. And I hope that, people who are listening in will hone in on, because I think you were very genuine in how you stated at the beginning that many providers are definitely doing the best they can, but they're in business models that just don't allow for a whole lot of talking, which, talking is necessary, right? But, the business model is set up for a 15-minute appointment or a 20-minute appointment. If you're lucky, you're getting 20 minutes. I mean, but for the most part,
that would be very lucky.
You'd be very lucky. I mean, someone's got to be like, maybe someone canceled before you and this person's got extra time, and so you're absolutely right that the business model creates a pressure and creates an ecosystem where it's all like numbers. So getting people in, getting people out. And I won't ever go so far as to say that people don't want to do a good job and do better, but that ecosystem exists and that's what they're up against. You also said something else that I think is also really important is about training, because nutritional psychiatry, which is basically what we're talking about here, is relatively new. I would say, as you said, probably the last, 7 to 10 years, where we're really tuning into something that's important, which is what we're talking about today, is that gut microbiome, where serotonin, that neurotransmitter is produced, and understanding the relationship between food, mood, and mental health. You are what you eat. I mean, that's just a fact, right? And, it always makes me laugh when people use that term junk food, because it can't be junk and food at the same time. It's either junk or it's food, right? But even things that aren't junk food, everybody's body is different. And so what, like nightshades, tomatoes, eggplants, all those kinds of things that may create inflammation in the gut, that can play a role in how, your cognitive health and mental health and that kind of thing too. So I'm
Yeah.
really thankful that you laid it out so gracefully the way you did, that people are trying to do a great job, but this is still relatively a relatively new field and relatively new science. Like there's the fundamental stuff, like we know what the brain is and the regions of the brain and all of that. But what's relatively new is the research on the role of nutrition and the gut microbiome. So
Mhm.
I'm really happy that you stumbled on that in the way that you did, because it
So am
sounds to
I.
me, yeah, it sounds to me like it really, like fundamentally, I mean, like you get to a crossroad, and it sounds like it just took you on a whole different path in your life and even professionally.
It did. It did.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I had the whole, I don't remember the term you used, but adding one medication after another
Hmm.
onto another.
Hmm.
Like I
Hmm.
had been doing that for years.
Hmm.
I'd been diagnosed with hypertension when I was 27 years old.
Mm.
Did for that since then, and for chronic sinus infections and allergies, I
Hmm.
take a prescription medication every day since I was 29 years old.
Hmm.
So over a decade on both of those medications, and really no, like with the hypertension, they ran a lot of tests on me. They did ultrasounds on my kidneys and stenosis
Hmm.
tests and like all of these things, and there's
Hmm.
nothing wrong with me.
Hmm.
Run in my family.
Hmm.
There's just like, why did I have hypertension? You know,
Right, right,
it
right.
was tied to my gut microbiome being so off.
Yeah, yeah.
Inflammation throughout my body and
Hmm.
these kinds of things, because when I started cleaning up my gut and my nutrition and addressing the communication between the gut and the brain,
Hmm.
that all went away. I
Hmm.
My pressure normalized for the first time in 13 years.
Hmm. Hmm.
Allergies went away. I
Hmm.
was able to get rid of both of those medications. So um, there's just it. And then when I went on, or when I had my accident, I went on. I felt like a guinea pig as far as medications went, trying to manage my symptoms afterwards. So really strong psychiatric medications after that, and medications and treatments for my headaches and all kinds of things. So
Hmm.
I really felt like a walking pharmacy by the time I reached this point of having my daughter and going through the pregnancy, breastfeeding, not wanting to subject her to all of this stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so it was just like I needed something different.
Yeah.
I was just so ready for change.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, yeah. And that's what we're here to talk about, folks. We're talking about making changes. And you know what? I want to unpack that. So I want to make this really practical and talk about, so what did this look like in real time? Can you share with people, like, what was the first thing you did? I mean, obviously, or I'm not going to say obviously because I don't know, but I would imagine you didn't just take your medications and just put them in a brown bag and toss them out and say, I'm not taking them anymore, because it kind of doesn't work that way. Not
yeah,
safe to do that, and we're definitely not recommending that for
no,
anyone. And I want to put that disclaimer out there that everything we talk about right now is really just for educational purposes. We're not giving any advice to anyone that's not seeing their provider. But share your personal story and your journey a bit, if
yeah.
you will, Sarah, about what did it look like once you got to that turning point in the road and you said, hey, I got to do something different here. What was that something different? I mean, what, like, really unpack that. Like, what was the
Yeah.
first thing that you said, I'm going to do or not do?
Well, the first thing that I actually did that I didn't realize that I was doing to help myself, I thought I was just doing it to help my daughter, was that when she was born, she was terribly colicky.
Mm.
Discovered that she had a milk and soy protein intolerance.
Ah.
We removed milk and soy, or any dairy and soy, from my diet because I was breastfeeding.
Mm-hmm.
Removed dairy and soy, I instantly felt better.
Oh my gosh. You know how
um,
many times I have heard people say that, women say that they were forced into that elimination diet
mhm.
because they were breastfeeding. So let me not interrupt. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So that was Actually, like that was the door cracking open for me. That was the first time in my life that I had realized that maybe some of what I was eating wasn't helping me out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when you eliminate milk and soy from your diet, you're basically eliminating almost all processed foods,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of sugar, because processed foods contain a lot of sugar. So I was removing a lot of sugar from my diet, which sugar is very inflammatory as well.
Yes.
So I really, by eliminating dairy and soy, I eliminated a lot more than just that.
Mm-hmm.
It forced me to eat a lot more whole foods and natural foods and good fats and more fiber and that kind of thing, just because of the easy, the grab it off the shelf and fix it real fast kind of meals. I couldn't eat those anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you, I was not like, I've always been like size wise, weight wise, like on the small side. Like I haven't worry about what I ate.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of a junk food junkie. Like I loved candy. Loved it. I was so addicted to sugar. I loved macaroni and cheese. Like all of the things that are easy to fix. I've never liked to cook, so I was never good at like using real foods to make meals.
Right.
So I really, my diet was not good. I did not have a healthy diet. Like it was hurting me more than fueling me, I think.
And even even during the pregnancy also?
I'm sorry?
Even during the pregnancy also?
Yeah, I didn't eat well. I had never been educated on the importance of it. Like,
gotcha. Yeah, gotcha.
I mean, there's a certain amount of information you just sort of glean out of life, but no one had sat down and had a conversation with me about what my nutrition was really doing to my body. So when I had to clean up my diet for my daughter, like instantly I felt so much better, and that opened my mind, and that intrigued me about the whole holistic side of, or the natural side of managing your health. So fast forward to, she was about 7 months old. I'd been on this diet since she was about 10 weeks, I think, maybe 3 months old. So a good amount of time, long enough to know that I felt a lot better and that there's something to this whole holistic thing. And I was just actually on a Facebook Live. Like I watched the Facebook Live of one of my friends who was talking about baby microbiomes on her Facebook page, and how you can impact your baby's microbiome with your own diet, and how mothers pass their microbiomes on to their babies. So I was intrigued by this because yet that was something else that maybe I could continue to do to help my daughter still breastfeeding. So I just commented on it and got into a conversation with this friend of mine about gut health and the gut-brain connection, because I've never heard of that. Like the science is pretty new, so a lot of it. So she shared that with me, and I was like intrigued by the fact that what I ate impacted not only my nutrition, my daughter's nutrition, her immune system, so many things, her, the chemicals that are produced in your gut in the digestive process by the bacteria. They're like the precursors for the serotonin, like you mentioned, dopamine and norepinephrine, and and all of that stuff that your brain actually needs. And so that is what like really got me interested in starting supplementation on top of the dietary changes that I had made, because I'd always had this mental health struggle, especially since my head injury. I'd been on a really high dose of antidepressants since my head injury, anxiety medication. So that had just like escalated exponentially after I got hurt. And so I wanted to try this. She was selling a product line. I wanted to try it because I was like, if I can help my daughter, my physical health and my mental health all in one thing, sign me up. I will try it. like, let's do it.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that's when she was about 7 months old, that's about when I started supplementing, and I was just totally blown away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It helped to do. And then that increased my interest in learning more about the nutrition side, because I understood that it's not just supplementation and a little diet. It's like, it's a lifestyle. You need to,
Yes.
an incremental, step by step. You can do one thing at a time. You don't have to just cold turkey your life
Exactly.
something new, but you can
Mhm.
add things in or eliminate things along the way or make it doable, but just keep working that direction. So I wanted to continue to work that direction because I understood the value of the lifestyle changes and the changes in nutrition as well as supplementation.
Oh my gosh. Like every time every time you share, I just feel like, it's like a whole book. It's so wonderful. There's so much to unpack because it's just so juicy and it's so important. And I mean, like everything that you're saying, I totally just, as you're speaking, I'm seeing different clients, I'm seeing different stories, and it's so true. I really hope that listeners are tuned in because this is exactly what I hear and see when people come to me and they have the very same language that I know there's got to be a better way. I've got to do something differently. I'm willing to take these medications because I've got to work and be productive. I run my own company. I'm CEO of whatever, whatever. But at the same token, behind closed doors, I'm miserable. Can you please help me? And you're absolutely right about a lot of things. And I want to say this, like you said, you eliminated the sugars, because and with your because of breastfeeding your daughter. And you're absolutely right. Taking sugar out of the diet, it's not just, okay, I'm not going to add any more sugar on my coffee. You're talking about all of the products. I mean, you flip over the back label of anything that's on a shelf, and you literally will see all of the process. And why is it processed? Because it's got to be shelf stable. It's got to be able to be put on a truck, on a plane, on a boat, cross the river to the food store, land up on the shelf somewhere, and sit there until you and I, John Q. Citizen, and Jane Q. Citizen comes along and purchases this thing. It's gotta be shelf stable, right? But you're
Yeah.
so right that I mean, you just I say to everyone, and I do this in my own coaching, before COVID, I would do like grocery store tours just so that, go out and show people, like, I just want to show you this, how the grocery store is set up. And not only that, I want you to start reading labels. I feel like that is the most, that is the one empowering thing you can ever do for yourself is just to start reading like you did, looking on the back of these
Yeah.
labels and seeing what is in this food. And, one of the things I'm so grateful for is, people talk a lot about health literacy and they talk about, low income, low education and whatnot. Health literacy is not just about, someone's grade level or whether or not they went to college. Here you are, you're saying, I'm a professional woman, I'm college educated, I've got, dual degrees, I'm in my own business, and here you're saying, I didn't know, XYZ. So health literacy is really about the ability to gather this information and then utilize it in a way that, affirms your health and well-being. That's practical information. And everything that you said is it's things that we should be doing and can be doing for ourselves, right? So these are tips and things that you're sharing that exist outside of the medical appointment. So whether the appointment's 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, you're talking about things that we should all be doing, just period, regardless of, what happens in the span of a healthcare visit. I want to
Yeah.
ask you this though, I'm curious about this. When you said that you immediately felt better,
Hmm.
how did you, because I know the pushback I typically get from people is energy crash, like, oh my God, I cannot take sugar out of my diet because taking the sugar out means like black coffee or whatever, right? So it's something that's not sweet. Did you experience any of that? Like, okay, I've taken sugar out. Oh my God, I have no energy, or, the jitteriness or withdrawal. Can you speak to that a little bit about what that looked like in those early days when you made that big leap? Because that's a pretty big leap, is eliminating sugar.
Yeah. So the goal at the beginning wasn't to eliminate sugar, it was to eliminate the dairy and soy. So I
Mhm.
eliminated a lot of the sugar.
Okay.
You can still find some processed foods and some
Mhm.
things that have sugar in them that don't have dairy and soy. So I was
Okay.
still eating, I didn't like cold turkey at all.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
so I kind of eased into it a little bit. I mean, I eliminated a lot right off the bat just because you just do. I mean,
Right.
dairy in the form of whey powder or whatever is in dairy and soy, or one or the other is in
Mhm.
every processed food you will find.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like insane. I had no idea. And so I mean, literally like grocery shopping. I used to just go down the aisles and pull the things,
Hmm.
dump them in the cart. It,
Hmm.
it took me 3 times as long after,
Hmm.
because you have to read every label when your child is as sick as mine was from
Hmm.
having these proteins that she couldn't digest. I did not want one single slip up in there. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's about reading the labels, and it was about eliminating the dairy and soy first, which eliminated a lot of sugar, but not all of it.
Gotcha. Okay.
I I did, as I became more and more educated about nutrition and started eliminating more and more sugar. Um, I didn't ever cold turkey it, like I said, because I kind of weaned myself down. But
Hmm.
I do like about once a quarter. I do what I call a reboot, and it's
Hmm.
a reset. And for those
Hmm.
days, I do eliminate all added sugar, like a
Hmm.
little bit of fruit and that kind of thing. But I do feel the crash when I do that. Just
Hmm.
a little bit that's still in my diet.
Sure.
So I know what
Sure.
that feels like, and it's hard. It's
Yeah.
definitely do feel depleted of
Hmm.
energy when you're kind of going through that withdrawal period.
Hmm. Right.
And especially because during that time I also eliminate caffeine. So
Hmm. Hmm.
my morning cup of coffee that I normally would have. So
Hmm. Hmm.
it's tough, but if you just push through,
Absolutely.
and get to
Yeah.
the other side, you feel so much better, and those sugar cravings are gone
Hmm.
and out of your diet for a little while.
Hmm.
And you don't feel like you're doing this with your energy and your cravings for foods and stuff. You just feel like
Hmm.
nice and level.
Hmm.
I always encourage people, just stick with it. Like
Absolutely.
don't give up because
Absolutely.
it feels hard for a few days, because
Hmm.
it's going to, but
Yes.
we'll get better.
Exactly. And for our professionals, the Monday through Friday high level of responsibility or solo practitioners and things, I generally, recommend people do things over holidays, right? Or not the holidays, but over weekends, or do a holiday for yourself. So like a self-imposed, I'm going to take this week off to do this cleanse or do this reset or reboot, as you're saying, because
Mhm.
absolutely, it definitely can trigger a little bit of irritability and things like this. But like you're saying, I mean, if you just push through it, and then, you'll get to that other side. And something else you said that's really important is small incremental changes. So, you're a CPA. We were talking about money earlier, and the connection between that is like, it's just like saving, $10 a week. At the end of the month, you've got $40, $100 a week, 400 at the end of the month, $100 a week, $5,200, at the end of
Yep.
the year. So it's all about compounding. It's all about small steps, because I live by the dictum that baby steps are still steps. You just want to be, as you said, moving in the direction of change. And there's nothing worse than pulling the plug and making a big change in your life that's unsustainable, right? Would you
Yeah,
agree to that? That's, when
I
people
do
try to do
agree.
this.
I
Mm-hmm.
do agree, because then you feel like a failure and you feel like, well, what's the point? And you go back to your old ways. Whereas if you just make them digestible, incremental steps that you
Mm-hmm.
can achieve and accomplish and meet,
Mm-hmm.
then you feel like you can try the next one the next time and the next one the next time.
Exactly, exactly. Also, Sarah, I'm wondering if you can speak to, you had mentioned, you said it wasn't just changing your nutrition, changing your diet. You said there were other things that, because you really, I noticed on your LinkedIn, you talk a lot about that gut brain axis, right? And
Mhm.
so also I know that would incorporate the HPA axis or like the
Mhm.
adrenals and cortisol and all that kind of stuff. Are there things that you started to implement outside of, the nutrition, but that was targeted toward improving the gut? Is that sort of like, do you understand what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
so I sort of I've sort of taken like a whole body, mind, spirit, body approach.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So I think that sleep is a huge thing that oftentimes we don't realize is impacting our headspace and
mm-hmm,
digestion and just like everything in the body. So I've implemented sleep routines, like, trying to go to bed and get up at the same times, turning off the blue light at least an
mm-hmm,
hour before bed. I take a hemp oil at bedtime to
mm-hmm,
before I go to sleep. That really helps me. Um,
mm-hmm,
just some other, I take a sleep supplement, an all natural sleep supplement.
mm-hmm,
There's a lot of things around sleep that I do. Um,
mm-hmm.
I have a gratitude practice in the morning.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
I think that mindfulness is a
Mm-hmm,
big part of like you have mindful mental health practice.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
um, so gratitude and staying spiritually connected to my belief system, like
mm-hmm,
feeding that on a regular basis. Um, I the supplementation has been a big thing for me. The probiotics that I take are specialized for enhanced production of those neurotransmitters
mm-hmm,
so specific strains that help with mental health.
mm-hmm,
That's been big for me. I take another supplement that regulates cortisol.
mm-hmm,
It helps it to like the cortisol levels to balance out.
mm-hmm,
So for stress resilience and anxiety and that kind of thing, it's really helped.
mm-hmm,
Um, I try to get regular exercise. I've never had to exercise to control my weight, so it's never been like a big deal.
mm-hmm.
But I realize now that just moving my body regularly
Yes.
is a big deal. Like even if it's just going for a 20-minute walk during the day
Yes.
or
Mm-hmm,
or getting down on the ground and stretching or doing some breathing exercises. I try to incorporate something like that into my everyday.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm not perfect. Like it doesn't happen at all of these things. The only things that happen every day I'm just like die hard about are watching what I'm eating. I'm
Mm-hmm.
giving myself grace here and there, but watching my nutrition and taking my supplements. Other things, like it's life. Stuff happens. I'm not going to get to exercise every day. Maybe I'm having a bad morning with my daughter trying to get her out the door
Right.
and I don't have time for my gratitude practice. Like
Right.
um, those kinds of things. And you have to give yourself grace that way. Because if you're too worried about doing it perfectly, you're going to fail. You're going to
Absolutely.
out more.
Absolutely.
It's about incorporating like all of these different areas of it's a holistic system
Exactly.
spirit.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
those
Yeah.
are some of the things that I've tried to do that
Mm-hmm.
really helped outside of just looking at the nutrition or
Mm-hmm. That is so important because, again, so much to unpack. I know I keep saying that, but you just hit the nail right on the head that it isn't just one thing. When people, sometimes I think when people, at least when people come to my practice, they come with the same mindset that they had in the allopathic world. So I'm going to give a perfect example. In allopathic medicine, which is, traditional medicine or just everyday, routine practice, it's give me something to take away this symptom. I just want something, right? So if it's I can't sleep, then give me a sleeping pill. Or if it's I've got a pain over here, give me a pill for that, right? And people who are in the complementary and alternative and holistic space can sometimes have the same mindset. Oh, if it's a supplement, just give me another supplement. Is there a supplement for that? Or is there a herb for that? And so you wind up doing the same thing that you were doing when you were in the allopathic space. You just want to keep taking something. And I totally agree with you that there are wonderful supplements out there. I mean, really, really wonderful. I carry things in my practice, make recommendations, things like this. But what you're talking about is targeted supplementation. So you've got supplements taken for specific things. You're talking about adrenal support. You're talking about gut brain, gut microbiome. You're talking about that gut brain axis. You're talking about sleep and restorative sleep, which I've got to make a point about that in a second. But you're not talking about just going to the market or going on a website and just like, oh, I'm going to take this and I'm going to take that. You're talking about targeted supplementation. You're taking it for a reason. You know why you're taking it, and then also the consistency and the quality of what you're taking. And I think that's really important too.
And I'm also a big believer in, I meet so many people in my coaching practice where I meet so many people that are taking, like, going to the drugstore and they hear something about a certain herbal supplement or whatever. So pretty soon they've got like a basket of like 10 or 12 that they're sort of taking regularly, but maybe not all the time. But when they feel like they have a symptom, then they'll start taking it because it's supposed to be just for that. And what people don't understand is that supplements come in all different levels of quality, and they may or may not perform the way that they claim to perform, unless they're clinically studied, unless they're quality controlled. You just don't. Going to the store and just starting to grab stuff off the shelf is not a good route.
Right.
Like you, who carries a certain line or brands that are, very controlled in quality and production and that kind of thing. Or like what I'm on, it's a very synergistic program it's based on the gut brain axis, and then there's add-on products that help with other areas of your life that might be out of balance, right?
Right.
All geared to work together as a package. It's been that way, it's been developed that way. Oftentimes people just start taking stuff off shelves and
exactly
in their own concoction, and it's not performing what it's supposed to because maybe the quality is not there, or it's not meant to work together,
Right. Exactly. Yeah, things can have synergistic effects. I mean, it goes back to something that you said in the very beginning about educating yourself, like becoming, you and I joke, you had sent me that clinical study through LinkedIn, and we were saying that, clinical studies are like our bedtime reading, but it's true, you get into this stuff and you get down this rabbit hole and you're like, oh my God, let me pull up this study and that study. And it's absolutely fascinating. But for the average, consumer, I say, entrust this process to someone who is authentically, genuinely interested in your health and well-being. Someone like yourself who has lived the experience, or myself with the lived experience and the clinical background, one way or another, not just randomly going and picking up things, because you actually can be worse off on a cocktail of supplements that you know nothing about. You have no idea why you're taking them. You're not taking them consistently. You're worst off when you're doing things like that. And, I'm a master gardener. I have done a lot of study with herbal medicine and things like this. And I will say this, plants are still medicine, right? So herbs are not to be played around with. You have to know why you're taking a certain herb, how much, milligram, you should be taking, the consistency of it and things like this. So I'm glad that you emphasized that and shared that part of your journey as well, that it was really about, being educated, but now you've got a system in place for yourself. And then you said something too that I think is just so beautiful, is that we've got to extend ourselves some grace. I love that word, grace. It's like one of my favorite words. And it's just being kind to yourself, being good to yourself, being gentle with the process, and knowing that, you are evolving. You are hopefully becoming a better version of yourself every day. And it's you're going to have days, there are days I don't exercise, or I choose to do something else because it's more imperative. Like, there are days that I wake up and it's just about 30 minutes of meditation. I'm not going to go for a walk. I really need to get centered, and so I'm going to do that as opposed to the exercise. But the fact of the matter is, because it's compounding interest, like we talked about earlier, one day of me not doing an exercise isn't going to throw me over the river,
Right.
because I'm picking up some other thing that really does add into my global picture of health and wellness,
Yeah, I love
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I love that you said that about extending ourselves some grace, because we can just get so caught up in the wellness stuff that we lose sight of the bigger picture, that which is something you said from the very beginning, that this is about a lifestyle. This is about changing your life and moving forward. I want to ask you this too, as a professional. You talked about feeling better and things like this. What can you say immediately, or not really immediately, but what can you say that has really changed for you in your profession as a CPA, in the work that you do with other professionals? How has your work life changed, by now making these lifestyle changes and being, focusing on gut health?
Yeah, so I think the biggest change in my career has been that I I'm no longer willing to sell my soul to um I haven't had my own practice. Like, I've always been an employee somewhere.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
all of these years I've just killed myself to get the job done for somebody else, on their schedule, on their deadlines, what they wanted to further their,
Hmm. Yeah.
their well-being, really, financially.
Hmm.
And I've worked for nonprofits, I've worked for governments, I've worked for, like, I've worked the spectrum, but in any of those positions, I always felt like I sacrificed myself for the good of others.
Hmm.
And I wasn't willing to stand up and say no if I was suffering. I
Hmm.
just get the job done at all costs, be the good employee, make sure you do your A plus 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 work all the time.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and a lot of that time, when I was in public accounting, it was about efficiency. So it was, not only does it have to be A plus, but it
Hmm.
needs to be fast.
Right.
All
Right.
about billable time. And
Mm.
so I just, being a people pleaser, I'm a 9 on the Enneagram, if you're familiar.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I, and combined with perfectionistic type A personality, like, I was just constantly, it was never good enough. It was never,
Mhm.
never as good an employee as I wanted to be, or working fast enough, or doing a good enough job. And so I just killed myself over and over and over. And that's why mentioned earlier, I constantly went through the burnout recovery cycle. Like,
Mhm.
I'd work, 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 crash
Crash. Yep.
for 3 days. I
Yep.
didn't know why I felt sick. I didn't
Mhm.
know why I couldn't get up and go to work. There was
Mhm.
nothing really wrong with me. I just felt sick.
Mhm.
And I realize now, looking back, that was burnout. That was when I was crashing. Like,
That's what burnout looks like, right? Yeah.
yeah, my body and mind just couldn't do it anymore. And I just was toast. I was just
Mhm.
done. So,
Mhm.
I'm no longer willing to go there.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm sorry, I'm just not. I am a better employee now that I take care of myself, and I know what my limits and my boundaries are, and I stick to those, and I'm not willing to sacrifice. That's not to say I'm never going to
Mhm.
work a weekend here and there if I need to, if there's something really pressing that has to be done. But on a regular basis, I'm not willing to sacrifice my sanity, my mental health, my sleep, my energy completely, for a job anymore.
Right. Yeah.
That makes me a better employee, actually, and a better coach, and a better everything that I do, like all
Mhm.
the hats that I wear. I think that I'm finally starting to learn that I need to take care of myself before I can really take care of those other people.
That's right. That's right. Again, it's the kind of thing, you said this earlier, about balance. You know, for years we talk about work-life balance, work-life balance. So everybody's got a, something to say about work-life balance. But you honed in on something from the very beginning, and you talked about how, the idea of balance is like kind of a misnomer, because there are days that you're going to have to give a little bit more. There are days you can give a little bit less. There are days that you got to give a whole lot to the family or to your daughter, and you can't give as much on the job, or vice versa. Or, maybe pick up a weekend where you've got to do, finish some reports. But it's all about equilibrium, right? It's
Yeah.
all about this thing called homeostasis, so that we're sort of doing this kind of thing a little bit, but we're not like up and down like this. We're not where
Mhm.
it's just we're constantly on go and on drive. And if I am grateful for nothing else, I am grateful for the slowing down that has occurred as a result of, I mean, this is tragic. It's a tragedy that so many lives have been lost. And I say, for every person who's lost a loved one to this horrible pandemic, I really just pray that their lives, their memories will be a blessing. But I do say that, I think that one thing I am happy to see is that so many people are coming to the fast realization that, wow, I did not realize I was actually killing myself. I did not
Mhm.
realize I was on a fast train to nowhere. I did
Mhm.
not realize that I was climbing that ladder, but that ladder was leaned up against a building that I don't want to be on top of, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, people are coming to the understanding that it's all about homeostasis. It's all about equilibrium. It's all about that yin and yang, the giving and the receiving, the giving and the yielding. And so it's great that you were able to pick up on that at this stage in your life. Your daughter is still young, so you have the opportunity to really impact her life, and
Yeah.
really to set a model for her for what well-being looks like, especially as women. I mean, I just,
Mhm.
yeah, this is everybody, but it's really particularly important for women, because we're spending, we're the model for our children, and so when we're anxious and depressed and jittery and always on go, and everything's just 911, cortisol is just all over the place. What are we modeling for our children? I mean, I certainly don't think that's something that we want to, you know, pass on to them, So you talked
Yeah.
about passing on the chemicals of the medications, but we also pass on other things, which is subliminal messages, for children, because our
Mhm.
children are watching us. They're paying attention to how we're living. So it's great that, at 2 years old, you now have the opportunity to set the stage for her, and create an ecosystem in your home that really mirrors self-care, and self-care in a real way, not the self-care that is, hair and nails and all that kind of stuff, because that's like pampering, right? But the
Yeah.
self-care that is saying, I'm going to be good to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I'd like to sort of dovetail off of that. When I was able to get kind of my health equilibrium back
Hmm.
to where it was supposed to be, that gave me the capacity to then start understanding what all was going on up in my head and my head,
Hmm.
and I got interested in mindset and beliefs
Hmm.
and how we can manifest certain trajectories in our life if our brain is going there, right? So
Hmm.
I've just gone through this huge transformation in the last year and a half, like through mindset and mind work and
Hmm.
identifying what my values are and identifying what my beliefs are and figuring out what I want more of and what I want less of, and understanding how our thoughts like actually work to create our reality. So
Exactly.
whether
Yeah.
we are having them consciously or not, our thoughts are creating our reality. So
Every minute.
that has
Yeah.
been a huge transformation for me. And one of the biggest things that I think has impacted where my life's going to go in the future, just because it's opened new doors for me as far as feeling like some things of, there are things out there that are available to me that I didn't even know existed before.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
it's the kind of thing in my clinical practice, to bring it back home full circle, because we were talking about gut health and mental health. You know, I say to people that, anxiety and depression are like having this band of clouds, around your whole, like your whole vision, like your everything around your whole head, right? So you've just got this thick band of clouds. And what has to happen, whether it's through medication or gut health, nutritional supplementation, whatever, it's what has to happen is a rising above those clouds, right? So that you can see clearly, that you can see the vista, you can see the horizon, you can see what is actually happening. You can come into this sense of understanding about your thoughts, and how one thought weaves into the next. And that's what my goal is in medication, mindful medication management, but also just in the coaching, is helping people get above those clouds. And I'll tell you, when you tune into that gut health, as you were saying earlier, and you clean up that gut, you get,
Yep.
get all of these processed foods out and all of these chemicals. And then, for ladies who are perimenopausal or menopausal, when we start dealing with hormonal issues and whatnot, when we start making these lifestyle changes, you also mentioned sleep. Oh my God, there's so much detoxification that occurs in the brain when we're sleeping, right? So, when
Yep.
we talk about cognitive health, most of the time people think, oh, dementia, elderly. Oh, no, no, no. Cognitive health starts like, at your daughter's age, like
Yep.
sleeping, resting, getting up and not being irritable and angry or hangry when you're hungry, all that kind of stuff. So you're absolutely right that, this is a journey that begins one place, but it's a winding road that takes you down so many other paths, and it opens up so many other possibilities in your life. And yours is a true success story. I'm just so grateful that we were able to just come on tonight, and that you could share, because it's truly a success story of all success stories, about the power of lifestyle medicine and the power
Yeah.
of just focusing in on your self-care.
Yeah. I'm a total work in progress, and I'm excited to see, where I am 5 years from now. But it's just, it has been a true transformation. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want that to be a testament to other people, that you don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to stay feeling yucky all the time. You don't have to stay in a stressed out burnout situation. Like, you have the power to affect change in your life and completely change everything about it, just by starting a few, like, step by step, little integrating little changes in your life. So
exactly.
do nothing more than encourage people today that there's another way. There's other avenues. There's other possibilities open to you. You don't have to be miserable the rest of your life, because that's where I was at. I was miserable at 40 and on all these medications and stressed out, and
Yeah.
it was really depressing and really hopeless feeling and really defeating feeling.
Hmm.
If
Hmm.
that's how I felt when I was 40, what am I going to feel like when I'm 60? Or,
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly. Yeah.
so I've just come into so much hope now that I've made these changes in my life, that it can keep getting better. Like, I feel better than I've felt for 20 years. And
Oh, it's going to get better. I mean, it can only get better. I mean, because you've put these things in place to, this is not just a one shot thing. These are changes that you've made to your lifestyle.
these
So
are,
for
as
all
you
of
call them, pillars. These are pillars that prop up my life now.
Exactly. Exactly. They are the pillars. You're absolutely right. Sarah, can I ask you two questions? One, we're going to do our end round, which is a TTS, tips, tools, and strategies. Is there anything that you want to share about how people can start on this path? Is there a book, a podcast, a website? Is there anything that you want people to like tune into? And then the second part of that is, if people want to talk to you more, people who are in their own practices, in their own businesses, financial, want to get that, just start feeling better and know for sure that they don't want to be chasing a bottom line, final figure every month, but just want to talk to you more, how can people get in touch with you? So if you can share maybe a resource or two, and then how folks can get in touch with you, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, so I know you gave me the question ahead of time, so I had a little bit to think about what my tip, tool, or strategy would be. And for me, like, this literally the science of gut health, brain health, and the way they communicate with one another, the gut brain axis that was the pivotal thing for me, I think, what really made the dramatic change in my health was when I understood that system in the body and what I could do, not just with supplementation, but with nutrition and with everything else to enhance that system. So my recommendation is, if that's interesting to you and you want to learn more about gut health and gut brain axis, read The Mind Gut Connection by Emerin Meyer. That is
yes.
book.
Yes.
So that was one of the first books I read when I started hearing about the science. And it was like every chapter of that book, I was like, oh my gosh, that's somebody I know. That's so-and-so. I could help them. I could help them by educating on this stuff now. Right. And I got so excited going through that book and understanding the science better. I listened to it on Audible first. So it's you can do while you're cooking dinner or whatever, but it's a really interesting book and I highly recommend it. So that would be my tip. If you want to learn more about how gut health and the gut brain connection can impact your life, good place to start.
Fantastic.
And I love having conversations about this stuff. So if you want to reach out to me and have a conversation, I'm always open. Please do. Please DM me or whatever. I'm on Facebook under Sarah Christine Scott. That's my name. So it's Sarah with an H, Christine with a K, and then Scott, just like it sounds. And I'm on LinkedIn as Sarah Kilgore CPA. So you can find me that way on LinkedIn. And I love getting DMs in my box. So I'll definitely answer if you want to reach out and learn more about my story, or just swap stories, swap, experiences. I'd love to do that too.
Fantastic. Sarah, you are so gracious. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, number one. Number two, for just sharing your story. I feel like it was just so, I don't know, I feel like it was meant to be that we stumbled on each other on LinkedIn.
I'm so thankful for our connection.
I am too. I really, really am. It's just been fantastic. So
I feel like it's a meeting of the minds.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I know there's so much more we'll do together, and we'll continue this conversation. I'd love to have you back on to join
I'd love to be back.
To talk and just to continue sharing. And anyone who's watching this, if you've got questions or specific things that you want to ask Sarah, please feel free to or ask me if you're watching it on her Facebook timeline. Please just send a message and either one of us will forward the message in either direction. Because we're really about wanting to make a change and help people get what I say is fit and functional for life. So thanks everyone for joining in tonight. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me also.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. You have a great night.